Hello and welcome to today's video as we cover a bit of, looking back at the history of League of Legends, but also like who are the best players of all time in each given role. Today we're doing top lane. On the board here we have the top 47 players. Why 47? Well, arbitrarily I picked 100 Hall of Fame points. I have a document that I continue to update. That's part of my Discord's Hall of Fame, where I've taken stats from literally season 1 till now, and each player accumulates stats as long as they play, and use it to determine who is eligible for the Hall of Fame, who is not, and we vote on it every year. So, as long as a player is still playing, they're not on the ballot. Once a player hasn't played for 2 years, they are put on the ballot if they're a top 60 player all time at the time in their Hall of Fame points or whatever, and that's how they appear on here. So there are players that are on the ballot that aren't on here because they literally fit the criteria of being a player that's retired and top 60 currently that is retired. So, or inactive. So on here, ironically, I try and keep everybody within sections. So if they were within 5 to 10 Hall of Fame points of each other, they ended up kind of stacked. Ironically enough, Zeus and Impact, Zeus has surpassed Impact this season. And you're going to say, well, Impact really isn't the greatest. He's played a very long time. Longevity, in part, is going to cause you to accumulate Hall of Fame points. Stats, accolades, accomplishments. That's going to happen as you just play longer. So, and there's something to be said for that. If a player can continue to play for a very long time, a decade or more, they deserve kudos and props for that. So, ironically enough, Zeus and Impact are both around 325 Hall of Fame points, and Zeus obviously has a lot more to go in the tank, and Impact is on the second half of his career. For perspective, like Faker, I said in my Discord, has like over 800 Hall of Fame points, and by far has the most out of anybody. Like, he has double more than the next best player, I think, total across all 5 roles. And that's a good litmus test for me of like, well, I mean, the guy's played forever and he has 6 world championships. Oh, you know what? No, there is one person, and notice I said player earlier and I said person now, that does have more than half, so has more than 440 or so Hall of Fame points. But regardless, Zeus and Impact are at the top. And I feel like many people won't look back at Impact and say, wow, he's one of the best top laners of all time. But you do have to give him credit for playing so fucking long and at a high level. High enough level to not lose his job. And that is a thing. He went to North America when he was still in his prime, frankly. And then after that, you drop off here. There's a drop off between those two, and then you have Bin, Keen, and Soaz. Ironically, Soaz, right? A long-time player for Fnatic and many others. Played, I think, in North America at the end of his career, if I recall. Very long career. Bin and Keen obviously have been at the top of their game. They're still arguably at the top of their game. 369 after that, at the top of his game. Players that have won one international event, 2, I think Ben's won 2 MSIs. Might be 1, maybe 2. Keen's won 2 now. And you got 369 who's won 1. So, MSI champions there. Solid players, great careers. And really, when you think about it, in the entirety of their careers, they deserve to be on this list. They are in that top 5 to 6 all time based on how they've performed over their tenure. Now, this also warrants a discussion about, well, what about the players that just didn't play as long? And there's an argument to be made on a per year basis. Maybe a player like, we look at a player like Nuguri is a great example. Nuguri is down here, but he had a great career when he played. And of course, off the Rift issues, it is what it is, caused him to have his career cut short. And it makes you wonder, like, where does he rank all time? A player like Smeb down here. Many would consider Smeb to be the most mechanically gifted top laner of all time. Played a huge role in what top lane is how top lane progressed over the tenure of LOL Esports, but he never got the job done, and KT never really went deep into worlds and things like that. So that's gonna play a role. How well you like the thing is like because next you have Evie, and people are gonna be like, why the fuck is Evie up there that high? And it's because Evie dominated Japan so much that like domestically there is a conversation to be had that in terms of domestic dominance, Evie may be the most dominant player domestically in the top lane in any region in the history of the esport. Because DFM just crushed it. And honestly, Evie just crushed it. And then internationally, during his prime, was competitive with international top laners, in my opinion. It's just DFM weren't competitive in general. We saw one time DFM get out of play-ins and accomplish something that many play-in regions never could and get to the main event. So Evie is up there because, I mean, he just accumulated a ton of domestic points. And what separates players is the international success. I consider all domestic success to be equal to not create bias. But then the international successes is where players gain more points. The points are much higher at the international level, and that usually separates them. Right after Evie of Bwipo and Doran. Doran playing a little less than Bwipo, but Bwipo's had a great career as well. This includes Bwipo's jungle year as well. So that is a thing. Around here, we have a bunch of players that are close together. BB with G2 obviously has been very good for several years now. Even going all the way back to his time in Turkey, he was very solid. The Shy, one of the best top laners of all time as well. Obviously, he missed a whole season. That played a role in this. If he played another season, I expect him up there, statistically. Hooney had some up and down years. Obviously won a world championship, played well with Fnatic, played well with TSM, and I believe Echo Foxes or Phoenix Immortal, somebody in North America as well as TSM. Hooney, when he was on, was super fucking good. Khan, a player that was really good but never got it done. You could make a conversation that he's the best of all time to never win a world championship. Wonder and Flandre. Wonder's still playing. Rumored to be with SK this year. Flandre, obviously a world champion. And then you have a drop-off again to Kiaya and Hanabi. It's not a surprise to see those two together. They were very dominant in the PCS and VCS respectively over their tenure with teams like GAM and PSG. Hanabi was, I believe, a player that was in conversation to get an opportunity with KT even, which says a lot about an LCP player. Duke, two-time world champion, was a sub in the second time, but two-time world champion. Robo, similar to Evie, dominant in Brazil. Ziv and Smeb, Kuve and Coral. Kuve, obviously, his peak, you could argue, is one of the highest peaks of anybody all time. His run with Samsung at Worlds is undoubtedly maybe one of the strongest MVP performances we've ever seen. I think he has a solo kill record for Worlds. But outside of that, his career left a lot to be desired. Coral, someday, long career. Nugri, we already talked about. Fabulous, still playing in ERLs. Marin, an early player. Obviously seen very highly amongst the community. But played at a time early on when, I mean, things aren't quite what they are now. Dyrus with TSM. You got Looper. Rest still playing Kana and Odo Omne. And then towards the end, you have quite a few players around each other. Some still playing, some not. Hanser, retired. Boss, playing in ERLs. Fudge, still going. Thaldrin, retired. Zero's retired. Smurf, retired. A lot of Russian players in there. Turkish players. Players that dominated their regions, went to international events, didn't stack Hall of Fame points internationally, but did well domestically. Chippies from OS, very good when he played. Let Me of RNG. Kingen, a world champion, but otherwise left a lot to be desired. MMD with Flash Wolves. Armut Armit had a great career in Turkey, and then with Mad went to international events. So people got to give Armit a little bit more credit than they do. Aja with PSG now, Licorice, Rascal, and Darian, assist player from Russia. So, it ruffles some feathers, the order of things, because mechanically you watch these players, but you don't really think of what they've done over their entirety of their careers. Maybe you didn't follow them when they were in smaller regions or this or that, and thus end up a little ignorant on what their careers have been at a tier 1 level. But for the most part, I feel okay with this. I can reconcile it. I mean, it is what it is. I know some people don't like that I put Korea, domestic regions on the same tier, but I think that in terms of fame, it's notable to say, this player was great in their region. And they played an integral part in League of Legends being present in those regions. And just because you don't follow that region doesn't mean that that player wasn't impactful or wasn't super fucking good relative to the players there and played a big role in how LL Esports have grown in that region and that country. It's a thing to be like, yeah, Evie has been a big deal in Japan. Evie's huge. He's one of the most notable play-in region players of all time. And to discount that, I think would be unfair to him, because he is the only. He's the only Japanese player to ever be able to leave and go to a tier 1 region, a major region. He played with Heretics. Yes, it was way later than his prime, but in his prime he could have done that and he would have been just fine. And there's something to be said for him having that respect from LL Esports altogether to have an opportunity in the LEC at the end of his career. That he is revered as being that good. Just because you didn't watch him doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the case. So that is a thing. And he kind of is that guy up there. Because really you don't have another one until Kiaya and Hanabi. And we've seen Kiaya do very well internationally with GAM. Hanabi with PSG and probably play with Flash Wolves at the end of Flash Wolves' tenure, that he showed up at a high level. If you don't know who some of these players are, join the Discord. Most of them have a little short blurb I typed up of their under player discussions about, accolades, all pro nominations, international success, or just look up the players on Leaguepedia. Learn something about the history of the game. I think the history of the game is something that people really overlook because they don't care. And if you're clicking on this video, I think you're looking to get your rocks off to like your favorite player being high up on the list. And if they're not, maybe you should look up some of these players and understand why they might be here, and educate yourself. So that is what it is. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.